Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on the video. This is Nick from First Coast Math Clinic. In this video, we're going to talk about angles. Well, what is an angle? An angle is a geometric figure formed by two rays with the same endpoint. So let's draw an angle here. I'm going to start with the ray AC. So my endpoint is going to be A out to C. And then I'll draw another ray AB, endpoint A, so A to B. And the actual part that we're going to measure in our angle is in between these two rays, so it's right here in red. Let's label the parts of our angle. AC is our initial side. Ray AB, where our angle ends, is our terminal side. And the endpoint that they have in common is our vertex. Now, what are some ways that we can name this angle? Well, to name the angle, we want to put an angle symbol first to denote that we're talking about an angle. And then we want to start with a point on either our terminal or initial side. So we'll start with B. Then we want our vertex in the middle, so we can go B, A, C. Or we can reverse this and go C, A, B. Since we only have one angle here, we could also just use the vertex and name this just A. And in some textbooks, you see kind of a number here inside the angle, the interior of the angle. So we could also just number this and call this angle 1. So it's a couple different ways that we can name this angle. Now, what if I add a little bit to this? So let's say I draw another ray here, AD. I'm going to put a 2 in the interior. So now if I want to just name this angle in red, let's think about the ways we could do that. We could still use BAC. We can still use CAB. We can still name it angle 1. But if I just call it angle A, well, I've got 1, 2, 3 angles with A as the vertex. So A is not specific enough. So if I have multiple angles with the same vertex, I can't just use the vertex to name the angle. So I can't do this anymore. So for example, let's name this angle here in blue. So a couple ways we can name that. D, A, B, so we're going our terminal side, our vertex, our initial side. We could reverse that. B, A, D. We could use the number inside the angle, so we can call this angle 2. But again, I can't just call this angle A because I've got 3 angles with A as the vertex, so I can't just call this angle A. All right, let's talk about drawing angles of specific measures. So let's talk about drawing angles. And let's say we have an angle AXB that's 30 degrees that we want to draw. And if we want the measure of that angle to be 30 degrees, we're going to put a lowercase m in front of the angle measure. And here's how we're going to use our protractor off to the right to draw this. So I'm going to start here on the bottom. X is our vertex, that's our middle letter. So we can line up protractor. We have to line up our vertex with the guide and the protractor. Draw out our initial side. That's going to be XB. And when we use a protractor, we're always counting up. We see we have 2 sets of numbers. We have numbers along the top and numbers along the bottom. Numbers on the top go 170, 160, 150, 140. Those are going down. Numbers along the bottom, 10, 20, 30, 40. We always want to count up. So we're going to use the numbers along the bottom now to draw this angle. So let's find where 30 degrees is. We have 10, 20, 30 is right here. So I'll put a dot at 30, connect my vertex to 30, put letter A, move our protractor, and that's our 30-degree angle. Now let's say we want another angle. We want angle CXB, which is 90 degrees. So let's line the protractor back up again with our vertex. 90 degrees is right here. So I'll put our dot, put point C, then connect our vertex to point C, and we have our angle CXB, which is right here. I'll highlight this in red, and we put a right angle mark here to denote that it's a right angle. Let's do a couple more. Let's say we want to measure angle DXB, and we want that to be 160 degrees. So we'll line up our protractor again. We're going from B, so we're counting up, so we're going to use the bottom numbers, the numbers in blue here. So 160 degrees is right here. So put our point right here. That's going to be D. Then we can connect X to D, and our angle here in purple, that's 160 degrees. Now let's do one more. Let's do EXB at 180 degrees. So if we line up our protractor, again, we're counting up from B. So we're using the blue numbers. 180 is right here. We'll put point E right here and extend from X. So 180 degrees is this straight angle right here. Okay, so we used our protractor to draw a number of angles. I'm going to clean this up a little bit, then I want to find the measure of some of these smaller angles inside our figure. All right, so I cleaned this up a little bit. We've labeled the measure of each of the angles at the terminal side. So what if I want to find the measure of, let's say, angle CXA? Well, where would that be first? So CXA would be this angle here in orange. So to find the measure of CXA, we could subtract the measure of our terminal side from our initial side. So we could do 90 degrees minus 30 degrees, and we're going to get a measure of 60 degrees for CXA. What if we wanted the measure of angle DXA? We're going from D to X to A, so it's here in pink. So again, we're going to subtract the measure of our terminal side from our initial side minus terminal side. So we're going to subtract the measure of our terminal side minus our initial side. So we're going to do 160 minus 30, and we're going to get a measure of 130 degrees. So this angle measure here is 130 degrees. And what if we wanted the measure of angle EXD? XD is here in green. So again, we could do terminal side minus initial side. So we can do 180 minus 160, and we're going to get 20 degrees here. So we've got 30, 130, and 20. And we know that that creates a straight angle, should all add up to 180. So if we do 30 degrees plus 130 plus 20 degrees, we get back that straight angle of 180 degrees, which gives us a straight line. All right, let's do a little bit more practice with the protractor in terms of how to measure angles. All right, so we've got our figure here, and let's use our protractor to find the measure of some of these angles, starting with the measure of ABF. So ABF is here. Let's take our protractor, line it up, and line up the center of our protractor with the vertex. And remember, always counting up. So now our initial side is this side here. Terminal side is going to be the side BF. So now we're going to use the top set of numbers because we're going 0, 10, 20, 30. All right, so we use the top set of numbers to name this, or to measure this. So if we look, well, where does this go? We're at about 50 degrees. So ABF is going to be approximately 50 degrees. Common mistake when students use a protractor is they see these two sets of numbers and they're unsure which one to use. Do we use the 50? Do you use the 30? And they'll inevitably use the wrong one. So they'll say this is like 130 degrees. Well, if we just sketch out what ABF looks like, ABF is like this, right? So that's an angle that's smaller than 90 degrees. It's an acute angle, so if we have to choose just between 50 and 130, it's got to be our acute angle. All right, what about the measure of angle EBC? So we've got our protractor lined up again. EBC is right here. So we can say our initial side now is that C to E, so we're counting up, so let's use the bottom numbers, and we have 90 degrees for a measure of angle EBC. If we look on the other side and do maybe the measure of angle ABE, all right, now AB is our initial side to that point E, and again we're going to get, if we count up, now we're using the top numbers 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and we're still going to get 90 degrees. So what about the measure of angle DBC? So DBC, BC is going to be our initial side, so we're using the bottom numbers because we're counting up. So we've got 0, 10, 20, 30, so approximately 30 degrees for DBC. Well, what about the measure of angle DBE? Well, if we know that angle DBE is right here, and if we know that we have 30 degrees here and 90 degrees here, well, then DBE has to be 90 minus 30, or 60 degrees. But let's just confirm that with our protractor. So we can take our protractor, we're going to rotate it. BD is going to be our initial side, so we're going to line up the bottom of our protractor. With BD. We're counting up, so we're going to use the bottom numbers in blue. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and we get right here, and we confirm we're at 60 degrees for this angle measure, angle DBE. Let's do a couple more. Let's find the measure of angle FBC. So I'm going to rotate this back, slide it back in position. BC is my initial side, so we're counting up, so we're going to use the bottom numbers, and that terminal side F is approximately at 130 degrees. All right, so this angle here is about 130 degrees. Now, what if we also wanted the measure of angle FBE? Well, FBE is this angle in blue. I'm going to clean some of this up a little bit so it's a little easier to see. So FBE is this angle in blue right here. What we know from the previous examples, we could do 130 minus 90, right? Our terminal side minus our initial side, and get 40 degrees. All right, but let's confirm that with our protractor. So now I'm going to rotate it the opposite direction. I'm going to make that BF my initial side. Let's put it in position. We're counting up, so we're going to use the numbers along the top, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and if we notice that BE, that terminal side now, ends right here at 40, 140, but since we're counting up, we're using the top number, so that confirms that our measure is 40 degrees for angle BFE. All right, so this video was on how to measure, draw, and name angles. I hope this helped this video. I hope you understand this concept a little bit more. If you like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This is Nick from First Coast Math Clinic.